Next up, at UFC Vegas 101, we have a very, very interesting fight. We have Chris Curtis taking on Roman Kopylov. This is a spectacular matchup, and I am looking forward to it. Christopher Curtis, 31-11 in his career. He is 2-2-1 in his last 5, and he is coming off that main event loss to Brendan Allen, taking on Roman Kopylov, 13-3 in his career, 4-1 in his last 5. He's coming off that wrestle-heavy win over Cesar Almeida. And Chris Curtis is a clean counter striker. We know that about him. He's a guy that's finding power in short left hooks and putting people down or boxing them up. He can be a dog on the feet. He's got spectacular takedown defense. In fact, he went into his last fight with Brendan Allen with the highest takedown defense in the UFC's middleweight division. That obviously went down the hill when Brendan Allen had a few takedowns. But the reality is Chris Curtis is a very high-level boxer that has very good takedown defense. He's taking on Roman Kopylov. Roman Kopylov is a very high-level kickboxer. He had professional kickboxing experience. He picks his shots really well before settling in and weaving together combinations. He is 5-3 in the UFC, and all 5 of those wins are essentially over anybody that could not take him down. He has an 87% takedown defense. He's probably not going to need it in this fight. And he is coming off that decision win over Cesar Almeida, where a knockdown and 5 takedowns reminded us of how well-rounded Roman actually is. Listen, I am a Chris Curtis fan. It may not seem that way because we've picked against him several times, but you could be a fan of a fighter and just look at that fight objectively and make a decision. And this is going to be one of those times. I think Chris Curtis is grossly underrated as an MMA fighter. He is a very well-rounded guy who's not even fighting at his weight class. He's not a middleweight. He spent the majority of his career at welterweight, came into the UFC on short notice against Phil Hawes at middleweight, and then just stayed there. And he's had a good amount of success. The biggest issue with Chris Curtis is while he has all of these skills, and if you go watch his non-UFC fights, you'll see some offensive wrestling. He has all these skills. He hasn't used any of them other than the counter-striking and the takedown defense. And this is not a fight to be a two-dimensional guy. You're going to need more than just counter-boxing and takedown defense. The takedown defense is probably a moot point in this fight because Roman took down Cesar because Caesar's a high-level kickboxer. I think Roman's just going to be the better striker in a mostly striking matchup, to use Jacob's words here. So Roman Kopylov is going to be the pick. This is another fight where I think the odds are starting to get a little crazy because Chris Curtis is the more well-rounded fighter, but he doesn't use all those skills. Therefore, I'm going to have to go with the guy who has the better skills of the ones that they're both actually going to use. Roman Kopylov is the pick. What do you think, Jakey boy?
Yeah, I've seen all the stuff this week about Chris Curtis. You know, obviously I do the underdog lock of the week, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, Chris Curtis lock of the week. Like he could be the body shots, all this stuff." And I get it. I get it. I don't think there's anybody that's been a bigger fan of Chris Curtis than me. When he came in against what was it Buckley or whatever, I was like, he could knock out Buckley, and that's what it was, Buckley, right?
He knocked out Joaquin Buckley.
Yeah, I was like, and then he fought Brendan Allen. I was like, if Brendan Allen's not careful, he can get knocked out by Chris Curtis. I've been very high on Chris Curtis, so much to a point where he's been my lock of the week 3 times. Lock of the week 3 times. I love this guy and the way that he strikes and the Philly shell and the pressure that he brings in his boxing. And if you stand in front of this guy and you box with him, you're probably going to fucking lose. Not only lose, but you probably lose like 95 out of 100 times. This guy's a very good boxer if you just stand in front of him and box him. But as Angel mentioned, Roman Kopylov is not a boxer. He's a kickboxer. He likes to use the range. He likes to use the kicks. Chris Curtis has been lock of the week 3 times, 0-2-1 as lock of the week. There's only one other person that is worse than Chris Curtis as lock of the week.
Who's that? Who's that person? Who's the worst lock of the week? The record. Who is it?
So there was a couple of these fights was not. I mean, there were some close decisions to where one I think was definitely a win. The second one was definitely closer. Obviously, the other one was a little bit iffy, but kind of unrelated to anything going on. Amanda Hebos is
the worst lock of the week of all time.
0-3 as lock of the week. But yeah, I think Romanov is going to keep that range, keep those kicks. I know he mentioned, like you said, he mixed in the wrestling versus Caesar, but Caesar's not really. He's pretty easy to take down. I don't think he's going to be. I mean, if he thinks oh, I'm just going to take down Chris Curtis like I did Cedar.
No,
I'm gonna win
he's
that.
not
Yeah,
taking down Chris Curtis.
I hope that's not the game plan. It should just be rangy kicks. And while Chris Curtis is a pressure fighter, he is not like, when you see like a Josh Van pressure somebody, it is in your face and he is following you with the body shots. He is touching you as he's pressuring, right? It's touch, it's jab, it's boom, and he is touching you and he's on the pressure. Chris Curtis will walk you down, but he's not bringing anything with it. So if you're not hurting somebody while you're walking them down, yeah, Kopylov might slow down eventually, but I still think he's going to have enough firepower to just score, and I just think he's going to be scoring more. I've sat there and watched Chris Curtis fights as lock of the week and been like, Chris, you got to do something. Like, you got to, I know you're walking them down, but you can't just bitch at these guys and say, oh, he wasn't fighting me. I was there to fight. It's like you got it. I mean, I would want my win money. And if you want your win money, you got to eventually, can't just keep following people. But I've seen him do it way too many times, and he just doesn't seem to ever change. So I'm going Roman Kopylov to maybe win a boring just from the outside, touch.
Yeah, there we go. I like Chris Curtis quite a bit. Like I said, he's the
Nobody
better
liked
fighter.
Chris Curtis more than me.
He's the better fighter, but he doesn't use any of the skills outside of his best skill, which is the boxing. So going to have to go Kopylov here, $9,100, full-blown fade for two reasons. One, he's not going to finish Chris Curtis, so he's not going to score well. And two, Chris Curtis actually is a good underdog and could make something. He's the better fighter, so
I wonder if,
could make something happen.
Because I think they've kind of made up. I wonder if Sean's going to be in his corner, because Sean's always in his corner. And they had the little split up like around election time and stuff like that, to where it's like they couldn't ever be friends. But then somebody said
they make up?
Somebody said they're training together again, or at least in like training pictures or whatever. But
I mean, it's got to be hard to be like legit, bro. Like you and I have had ups and downs, but never truly like that's it forever. Fuck off. Because it's like over what? Like over words? That's crazy. I can understand like you fucked my wife, you stole money, sure.
Which I didn't.
What?
You said something. I said I didn't. It would be funny. Okay, so I didn't.
I bet. If you do want to check out, I actually do have a bet on this fight. If you want to check that out, the only reason I know you didn't is because she would eat you alive. She's like a praying mantis. Anyway, that choose your words. WeWantPicks.com. Click become a member at the top. You don't have to listen to me. Listen to the people. Jay Field sent a $4.99 super chat to say, happy to see the boys are back. I'm checking in from work in a crime lab. This is Dexter. And in fact, it's a crime that we get all of this content for only $10. WWP is the shit. Thank you very much.
Someone said
Jay Field.
Yeah, thank you, Jay Field. Ja Phil. Do Ja Phil?
Someone said what?
Ja Phil?
Okay.
No, someone said Jacob, thoughts on the new Marvel game.
Jacob looks like somebody. He definitely looks like somebody who would know everything about the new Marvel game. 100%. 100%.
Where's that football?